Chapter 13. This might be my favorite chapter because it really can kind of set up a whole program for you as a secondary special ed teacher. We really spent the first 12 chapters talking about how to create good learning environments and good learning situations in different subject areas and stuff. And now we're going to talk about how to learn and study and get things done and organize. And the text does a great job. And a lot of you, if you're a secondary teacher, which will be one of you at least, statistically our program, it's at least one, this will be tremendously helpful. And the authors lay this out really step by step for you to be able to do this, to teach these study skills and management skills. So with that, let's look at Chapter 13.
Let's start with a flyover of Chapter 13, Teaching Learning Strategies, Content, and Study Skills. And I've done it a little different this chapter, and that is I've clipped this entire chapter apart because I really want you to have all of this. And now I've laid it out on kind of a hyperlinked thing here that I'll kind of show to you as I go through this. Okay, so this chapter is broken down into these main areas: motivation, some specific learning strategies, and then content instruction, and then specific study skills, and then a little bit on the different commercial programs and learning software. And then as you see each of them, and these all link out to a place on the wiki. For example, motivation takes you to that and the different clips. And so, okay, so that's how it works. And I will give you this, and what I'm going to have you do is just, instead of importing all these, just take this link in and keep this all, and I will try and keep this all up for you. So, teaching learning strategies, and that's a big one here, is the strategies. And some things about content, but mostly the study skills that you'll be working with. And just kind of a video and an image in there of somebody with learning things to do. So first of all, this motivation. Motivation to learn or participate is essential to the success of any intervention. And we've talked about this all course long, it's motivation. And I have said, and my experience in especially secondary special education is, this will be your thing, is motivation. How to get kids learning again that have stopped, that have given up or quit. Okay. Intervention to be effective for a student learning problems, the individual must be motivated. It's a roadblock to success, and I maintain the kids I worked with, it started early on in elementary. By the time I saw them in middle school, they really had stopped, and I call them in-school dropouts. They came to school every day, but they didn't do anything. And what I felt my job was every day, first and foremost, was to get them learning again, as it will be yours. Okay. That adage, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, kind of applies here. That may be altered too, although you can't make a horse drink, you can salt the hay. In other words, put some incentives, put some things in place that makes them want to do it. So here's some examples of intrinsic things that may be of assistance. Listening to music, or tokens, or tangible reinforcers such as restaurant coupons, magazines, movie theaters. Even these anymore, very few kids don't know what those are. And they're not too hard to get a hold of, especially the 2-for-1s or a certain percent off. Some of these other things maybe a little more. Exemptions. I know kids used to motivate kids to get something done. We can do less. And extra time, and be a little careful. I've always said be a little careful extra time, because often kids with learning disabilities, and all kids, aren't real good at managing free time. So if you're going to give extra time or free time, make sure that you've got a structured environment for them to use it. Okay, now in here, what I want you to do is this. I'm going to back up here, and I want you to add one more. You add one more to this list, something that you think would be a motivation to you if you were a secondary age student. Secondary meaning 7th to 12th grade. Put at least one more in here, and of course put it in red or something so I can find it in here. And these here, you know what these are by now: the token economies, the contingency contracts, the verbal feedback, all things to motivate them. Okay. To promote a development of an active and independent learner, some motivation strategies attempt to teach self-control. Okay, here's the thing I found too that they had very little of is self-control. One of the things that came with self-control, I thought, is attention. Just continue to pay attention over. And again, when I talk about this, I'm talking about the secondary students, but it tends to be all kids with learning needs. But attention comes with this self-control. And so with that, it could be self-recording of progress, self-evaluation, self-reinforcement, and usually this has to be intrinsic things to be reinforced with this. Okay, that it's worthwhile. This is one of the things that we have in discussion about education is it worthwhile? You know, what are these real life, what does it mean to me? I'm not going to college, you know, I'm not going to post-secondary school, I'm just going to get a job, so what really does this matter? And now put on top of that a history of not doing well, of not succeeding, and struggling academically. What's in it for me? So can you obtain that commitment to options that the student values indicates are a desire to pursue? Right? And this is where you want that relationship. If you can develop a relationship with them so that you can have that conference, be that motivator, that's where you want it to be. And keep them apprised. This is where you go back to your graphs and charts and feedback on how well they're doing. Before we go on to strategies, let me take you back here. And this is the on learning strategies. First of all, it's the learning strategy curriculum. And this is a long thing on that. Different strands. And this is everything here came out of the University of Kansas is where this came from. And Mercer used a lot of their stuff here on motivation and working with kids and their study skills. So there's an acquisition strand, and that takes you through that, this strategic math series, word identification, paraphrasing, it step by step, and then it goes to another strand. It's very interesting, this about the different strands and how to get there, and then expression and demonstration strand, stuff like that. And the features of these strategies, like content, design, usefulness, all of this here. Okay. Then instructional procedures, and pre-test and make commitments, describe that strategy, model that strategy, verbal elaboration, controlled practice, a number of this stuff. And I don't know how much of this you want to look at, but there is a few on the test that has to do with it. So here's that definition of learning strategies that may be of help. The techniques, principles, or rules that enable a student to learn or solve problems. Okay, so here's what this whole chapter is about. Techniques or principles or rules that enable the student to learn, solve problems, complete tasks independently. A forgotten thing in special education classrooms is the work independently. And again, this is at the University of Kansas. And the goal of that is to identify strategies that are optimally effective and efficient. And that's what we're going to try and do here in this chapter, is identify strategies for these. So strategy development and strategy instruction, and you teach them. And this is what this chapter does, lays this out for you, how to do that. Again, still at the University of Kansas. Okay. Manuals advise teachers on how to provide intensive instruction to adolescents learning problems and how to promote the acquisition, storage, and expression of information. So effective and efficient learning strategies are share critical features in the parameters of content, design, and usefulness. And they all have mnemonics, a lot of mnemonics in this chapter, and acronyms. Those stages that are used to teach adolescents are this. First, that pre-test, describe that strategy, model the strategy, verbal elaboration, controlled practice, feedback, advanced practice, feedback, and feedback confirm and generalize. I'm not going to have you do a lot with this. I don't know how. I'd like you to read that page back over here, but I'm not going to make you bring that in. It seems like a long thing, but I'd like you to know what each of these are, so you have a feel for what this is, and that is this strategy for acquisition and generalization. Okay, that's what this whole thing is. So here's these skills and strategies. Students should be committed to learning the strategy. Physical and mental actions covered in the strategy should be fully described. Ought to remember. Okay. Students should understand the process provided. Now here's what I'd like you to do with each of these first four here is underline the same word either with your pen or with text that I've underlined in these first 5 strategies. Stop this now and do these 5. Here's 6 one, list. Strategy should be understood. Practice should begin. In other words, so they know if it's helping them, if the strategies are helping them any. Promoted throughout. So there again, underline those words in this also. Okay. Let's go on to content instruction. First of all, let me take you back here to content instruction. Content instruction looks like this. There's really these 3 areas. On this first gives you this, determine the requirements of making it in the general classroom. What is it that takes it? We've looked at this in the past. What are those things that teachers said are the most important? The number one thing, if you remember, is follow instructions. Be able to follow instructions. That's the requirements of making it in a general class. The course requirements that the student is not satisfying, that they need your help. Identify the factors hindering their performance. And often you are able to identify those, but not always overcome them. Easy to overcome. Then brainstorm possible classroom modifications, select that plan, implement, and evaluate it. So here's the different areas on content instruction. I think I'll give it hit this first. So this is why this is important, and that's what I say, especially by the time you get to secondary, this may be your job, is working in the general education classroom. But one of the things we've said all along in this is that you are the methods guru. Okay, this is what you do. This is what sets you apart. When you come into the regular classroom, hopefully you'll have all kinds of things, all kinds of strategies, all kinds of ways of doing things. That's what this chapter is about. And this is going to walk you through what some of those things are. From test taking to tutoring to homework help with assignments, tons of things. And again, this is what they're doing and this is what you'll do. Those are your general ed teachers. But this will be in conjunction with you. Just to individualize so they can learn. Either altering how the content is delivered or evaluated, or the nature of exactly what they're doing. Remember we talked about earlier the difference between modify and accommodate? That's what it comes down here too. How about the nature or quantity of the content that they're expected to master? And here's the things that we can use to alternatives. Techniques, how to compensate, and instructional adaptations, how you do that. And some of you will be regular ed teachers. This will be you also. So these making it, specify the course requirements, identify those hinders, brainstorm possible accommodations, select that plan, evaluate that plan. Are techniques that enable the teacher to help students identify, organize, comprehend, and retain this current information. Have the student identify what it is, organize it, comprehend it, and retain that information, the stuff they need. So these enhancements can make it more concrete. Remember, kids with learning problems, this is their thing. Can it be more concrete? Something they can understand, not the abstract. New knowledge, familiar knowledge. Prior learning experience. That's part of what you'll do, is help them make that connection between the two things. This relationship of organizational structures within to be presented, and draw unmotivated attention to the information. Here's that again. The unmotivated learners. And where this really will become a barking dog is if they're in the regular classroom. One of the big frustrations for regular teachers is the unmotivated kids. Their active involvement in it. And here is these 7 things, and I have actually clipped them, brought this in also. I want to show you this. Get to content enhancements here. The first link. I've actually clipped that and brought that in here. But what I'm going to ask you to do, the book lays out what the uses of each of these are. Could you make one line note for each of these 7, please, on this? Bring in one line for each, what they're for. The book does a nice job of laying that out. I wanted you to have that in this also. But content enhancements, the content enhancements are this: to help organize, promote understanding, describe, demonstrate, promote. That's what enhancements do. Organize, promote, describe, demonstrate, promote, recall. Then here's a couple of the mnemonics for it. The form device used to area lessons like focus, organize, relationships, most improved. So when we talk about content enhancements, here's how we're going to be able to visit this. Saying here's the different types. Okay. The next thing in content enhancements, activities for presenting. Okay, these are all the different things for how to present content out of your book. Okay, the following activities may help present content to students. First of all, provide a list of simple questions before a lecture. Does that make sense? Provide written backup to oral directions. Now, not always easy done, but if you work with a teacher, here's the example. If you're in a medium-sized school, if you're in a medium to large-sized schools, generally the teachers, especially when you get from 5th on up, have multiple sections of everything. If a teacher has multiple sections, generally they have a set of directions for each activity they assign. What you would assist them in doing is making a written thing about each of those activities as they come up. And again, once you have them, you have them. And the following activities for presenting information to the student who has difficulty with auditory input. Pre-presentation questions, vocabulary before presentations, pace presentation to give frequent examples, cluster the main points, summarize. The student who has difficulty following oral presentations. See, isn't this cool? It tells you exactly what the issue is, and that's why I felt so strongly about you having this. So when you run into this, as you're working with kids in the regular classroom, please, please come back and consult this on how to help them. That's what this is for. Instruction student with learning problems to sit near the front of the class. Okay, not a popular thing, but necessary. Match the student, the problem learner, with a peer helper. Okay, here's the following to help a student maintain attention and learn. Okay, listen up, you ADD teachers. They'll be teaching the kids with ADD, which of course is all of you. Combine the visual and auditory presentations. Establish eye contact with students during the oral directions and lectures. Okay, again, that's what you do. You ask them for eye contact. You make eye contact when you're given this. Write assignments, directions, lectures on the chalkboard step by step. To give you an idea of where this is coming, there's a couple other things in here I want to show you, but the chalkboard, I'm telling you folks, I have not been observed in a classroom with a chalkboard in about 5 years. That's very interesting. Do you know what the copyright of this book is? 2011. They're talking about chalkboards. Pause after question, provide thinking time. Remember in the video, How Hard Can This Be by Richard Lavoie talks about how the kids need time to process. Pause after question, provide thinking time. Pause after each segment while giving directions. Give examples and demonstrations. Briefly review information from previous lectures. Provide the student with time after lecture for review and improving notes. Talk distinctly and at a reasonable rate. Give cues concerning what is important. Use a pause procedure during lectures to improve recall in adolescence. Okay, so I think this will be valuable stuff to you. And then some types of visual displays that you may use. And again, this will be the kind of thing that I will expect you to be able to do and the students to be able to do. But what it does, look at the things, how they've drawn out things, visual displays. Down here, the court system. Again, I have this in here just kind of jog your memory, and I know now in several places you have some instruction in this area on how to use these different diagrams to diagram information. All right. Content enhancements. Now we're going to adapting material. Like first, you could develop a parallel curriculum, simplify the text, use audio text. Okay. Let me go back because there's some very good stuff in the textbook on this also. Here's the adapting materials. Here's the parallel curriculum. Are you familiar with this term? Just think about this. This is what's really gotten popular, and you may have to do if kids are really struggling. Parallel curriculum materials present essential content in ways that help the problem learner organize, practice, and master this. Many school districts provide general and special education educators with release time or summer employment to write curriculum guides for various courses designed for use with low achievers. Thus, low achiever receives the standard text and a curriculum guide or booklet. Moreover, some publishers now offer adapted textbooks in which the content matches the grade level textbook but is written at a lower readability level. And this is where I think it is. Rather than handing them the regular textbook, this is when you arrive, I think, at modifying and keeping kids in a regular classroom. What if you had tiers in the classroom? What if you had at least 2, if not 3 tiers of textbook and 3 tiers of curriculum in the same classroom? Stay with me on this. What if you had a high-level textbook, a middle level, and a lower level? And in the lower ones, as it went down, the vocabulary changed, the assignments changed, the objectives changed, and it was all laid out ahead of time. Okay. The reason I say that is because it says here now in some classrooms they prefer to have the same textbook. But what if you completely laid out a separate curriculum? And they got used to that. this could be a whole new career for you as adapting entire curriculums and putting together multi-level curriculums. But that would be considered a parallel curriculum going through it. Now, how to simplify tests. And again, it has a great page here, and this is what I want you to hang on to, because at the very least, this is some of the things that you'll be asked to do as that co-teacher in a regular classroom. How do I simplify the test? Provide the student with a highlighted text. Underlying highlighting main ideas, yes. Transform words into graphic aids. We're creating those charts, graphs, drawings. This is what I'm saying. This is why it'd be a summer thing, is where you take it, or if you have the time, day by day as the lessons come up, you are making these modifications so the kid can be more successful. Use those advanced organizers to prepare the student for the reading material. Reduce the complexity and length of work. Provide self-correcting learning materials. You know about that in my 465 class. When simplifying text, concentrate on content, sentence structure, and vocabulary. Again, folks, you'll be kind of frustrated on how to simplify the text. This is how you do it. There'll be lots of this to do. And how do you help kids with things like textbooks? Okay. Keep sentences short, 5 to 8 words. Basic words, a few symbols, not too big of words. Present tense, avoid passive voice that they may not understand. Use simple sentences. Try to begin each sentence with a subject. Avoid figurative or symbolic language, like thundering herd, the herd gallop, things like that. Use pictures. Simple as that. Pictures as much as possible. Be certain every pronoun has an antecedent meaning, what it refers to. Use new words sparingly, only if you've introduced them ahead of time, and eliminate unnecessary words. So there again, if you're going to take a textbook or any kind of text that you use in the classroom, these are some ideas. And this is what you want to do. I want you to be able to find this when you become that teacher that's working with the kids. How do you get to them? So you come in here and you find this. And then how do you use audio text? And here's a whole thing. First of all, tape in a quiet place. And again, this is very interesting here, how it says to do it. About a recorder. One thing that's kind of crazy here is that they're not talking about digital text, digital things, but it does have some stuff on how to use that. But I say you'll be asked to come in the classroom and help, and this is could be the parallel curriculum, simplify the text, meaning the information, and then possibly using audio text. And then on assignments, modifying assignments. This is great stuff on how to modify assignments. And let me just put this pitch in there also on assignments, that a lot of the classrooms are going to have kids, if you have kids in there on IEPs, especially for a learning disability or mild disabilities, believe me folks, especially by secondary, they are so far behind, they're such a struggle, that this will be a big part of it. But the other thing I want to hit on is going to be a number of kids in the class, that have some of the same concerns and needs, and you want to be able to provide that if that'll help them also. But I don't want to go over each of these. Just hit some of these. Requires must be explicit and clear, so that they have to be clear what it is, what the assignment is. What is the learning outcomes? Okay, this is for all kids. Why are we doing this? You want to know that in this class. They're going to want to know that. Choices must provide that enables students to personalize the learning. Choices should include what to learn, and how to demonstrate this. Now we're talking about multi-tier learning here. Now it might not always be accepted in regular classrooms, but it's just some background for you to know. Assignment completion should initially be modeled and guided. I continue to critique student teachers when they're assigning projects or even papers. Have some kind of a model for the students to see. They don't all need it, folks. The kids with learning difficulties do. Students should know the dimensions of the assignment and prompted to ask questions about assignment completion. Process learning about assignments completion should be considered important as the learning is. Discussion regarding the quality of assignments and outcomes should be there. This bottom one should regularly set goals related to improving the completion of those processes. So again, here's your page on how to modify assignments. And then tutoring. 3 principles of tutoring should be powerful. Instruction should result in long-range benefits to the learner, and teacher expectations for learner performance should be high if there's a tutor, if somebody, especially a peer tutor. And then Hamill and Bartell offer this about a tutor: be dependable, patient during instruction, focus on understanding, integrity by giving the student accurate information, and respect their relationships and how to handle it. And here's, folks, none of these are important, but let me give you some ideas. Obviously peers, but I know we have a great aunt that goes to a school and tutors students one afternoon a week and helps. And she's a retired teacher and loves it, lives for it. So be creative if you're going to use tutors in this. And here's where I misspoke earlier on testing, and here's some definite ideas of testing. Give frequent and timed mini tests so that testing is not such an isolated, anxiety-provoking situation. Give practice tests and have students one another review answers. Alternative response forms when existing for formats. Multiple choice, including using yes/no questions, reducing the number of choice, providing more information from which to make the choice. Short answers, essays, all these it gives you hints on how to work with tests, folks. Please use this information, be able to find this back. This is very interesting on administration alternatives, and you don't always get to pick this, but you may have some input on which class the different students go in. So you want to identify where the most sensitive to the needs of students, and then this. Support the development like a homework hotline, and I say what beats this now, folks. Again, this tells me the age of this information. Nobody's doing homework hotlines anymore. It's all on web pages and online, like portals and stuff, where parents can come in and see this information. Very archaic, a homework hotline. Establish parental involvement in the training. Work with guidance counselors to schedule a balanced workload. Encourage development of parallel alternative curriculums. Support development of equitable diploma for mainstream students. So if you have administrative things, can be of help also. So here's the thing with assignments. Working on homework. The more time they spend working on homework, the higher their achievement. Not readily accepted from kids with learning disabilities. Must be appropriate to their ability and achievement levels, or it's worthless, folks. If it's not, it's worthless to them. Here's your word. Earning the academic credits. You may get it from somebody else getting some credit from coming and helping. Here's those guidelines. Here's the one on testing. Yes, so I may know it. I heard this from you. I know this stuff. I don't know how to, how to display it here. So you may modify in formats from Form Better. Okay, now let me just say this about this also. This is really for a paper test, paper pencil test, and I can guarantee you within 5 years a lot of secondary students are going to be doing assessments online like you do. So then you, as being in the field, can help write these tips on how to take tests online, the digital ones. So more frequent time mini tests. You realize that's why I give a test every week, so it doesn't become such a big burdensome thing to bunch 4 or 5 chapters together at once. Some alternative response, some alternatives, answers for alternative short answers, some how to do essays. Here's what I'd like you to do on each of these: is go back into the textbook and bring out one thing about each of these. Each one of these have some information, and I would like you to address each of these with some additional information, one thing for each. And of course, thanks for putting it in red so I can find it. And here's those administrative considerations. Again, you want to develop a relationship in your building so that you can have some input on this. Most sensitive to these needs. I say homework hotline. I wouldn't say a hotline, that's phone. I would say homework web pages. That assignments, because you know, I forgot it, I can't find it, all that. Here, it's right here online. Okay. Help establish worker guidance counselor schedule so that the workload isn't too big, there isn't too much, their schedule isn't too heavy. Here's that parallel alternative curriculum we talked about, that you can teach an alternative curriculum in the regular class. Equitable diplomas, long discussions about what's equitable diplomas in the, in this special ed world. Okay, so now we go into study skills. Let me take you back here into study skills. All right, and this is really well laid out too, I think, on study skills. Motivation, learning strategies, content, now study skills. And it's very, I think, very well done on study skills. But I think I will take you here first. Now we'll do this first. Here's the identified study skills that they need. Reading rate. Oh my goodness, reading rate. Here's a criticism of Hoover here on the reading rate. And I happen to know Hoover. I can't believe I ever said that, but I know this Hoover who wrote this. They read a different rate of skimming normal reading and read it rapidly, but it's very hard to change that reading rate, especially by secondary. So listening, tends to listening tasks, note taking, these are all the things they need for study. Report writing, oral presentations, graphic aids, test taking, library use, reference dictionary use, time management, self-management of behavior. So, not too many, is it? 11 things you get to work on to try and improve study skills. Okay, so first, there's preparatory, how to prepare for these study skills. Okay, and it lists these out, 5-day schedule for this. But what is these activities for? And this is what this is all about now, is activities you can do. And this is what I was saying earlier. You could create your whole course now on working with kids in this area by this. Giving them activities on how to manage their time. In other words, teach them, train them. Put this in a course on how to develop time, better manage their time. And this one is on how to better manage themselves. Developing self-management. Now look at these. If-then discussions. Provide the student with self-monitoring charts. Okay, this is how you teach them to be more successful. And then acquisition skills. How to actually acquire these things. And look at this, how this is laid out. Here is their activities for listening and note-taking. This is how you would teach that. And you'd pull this right out of there and go through this and teach them exactly how to do this. Physically prepare for listening and note-taking by sitting alert. This one, review vocabulary. This one, listen and organize cues for signal words. This one, listen for content importance by noticing such cues of change of voice, tone, pitch. Ask for elaboration of specific points. Request examples. Paraphrase certain points. Ask for visual reference. Use the following listening and note-taking in this. Teacher plays 5-minute audio recording for the lecture. This, I don't want to read through all this, but folks, I'm telling you, this is invaluable stuff. It's laid out perfectly on how to do it. And so if you need to be doing this to teach this, make sure you can do it. All right. Here's one on developing skills and textbook usage. lays out step by step how to do this, what you can do, and these different acronyms. And folks, there's times you're going to be frustrated. Come pull this out and use it on how to work with the kids. Reading and study skills. Different things, skimming and scanning. Okay? And you and I have both done this, but we've ever seen it laid out how to do it? This is one thing you're going to teach kids on, how to use the textbook, how to skim and scan. Okay? Here it talks about we're doing activities that are adapted to independent seat work. How about pre-test, post-test stuff? How to teach them for study skills. Folks, it's right there. Then reading and note-taking skills. Look for those main ideas and outlining, partially completed outlines for them. Column formats like this. This may be what you're called to do as that inclusion teacher. And I want you to be able to have this. Developing skills in visual aids, using the different visual aids. Here's an acronym. Another acronym for it. Come in here and take this with you, this whole thing. Sequential study methods is very interesting. 3 techniques, a multipass method, an SOS strategy method, or a panorama study technique. 3 different ones. All right. Let's see what the notes say about it. Here it is, the reading rate, listening, note-taking outline, report writing, all things that they need to be able to do to be successful in the class. Okay. And here's all those different things I just told you about. Acquisition skills. And I don't know how much to have you bring out of this. Could you just put some highlights? I think I'm going to have you do that for each of these. Is just some highlights for each of these. Each page, if you remember, had a ton of stuff. Let me take you down to this one. I had the whole page of this. And I'll tell you what I'd like you to do. Like for acquisition skills, pick out about 4 or 5 what you think would be the most successful of these and bring them in. Like here's the one, improve listening comprehensions. This, you decide. Bring 3 or 4 things out for each one of these. And I know it's a lot, but I want you to have something in the notes that shows me that you've worked through these. And I said 3 or 4. Let's make it 1 or 2 things for each of these. And you can abridge it the most you want. Thanks for putting it in red in there. And here's the recall stuff here. Okay. Expression. This is quite a few in here. I want to show you these also. Here's the recall ones. Just a couple of study rehearsals. Rehearsal is an interesting term. Have a student rehearse from various content formats like rehearsing notes, rehearsing outlines, rehearsing discussion, rehearsing demonstrations. That would be your job, is to help them rehearse these. Encourage use of verbal rehearsal. Instruct the student to questioning strategies. Develop the rehearse information and later recall. Use this. Have a student review material. Encourage this. So that's on how to develop rehearsal. And this is too how to develop mnemonic strategies, and this would be for you as much as them. The acronym first, form the word, insert extra letters if you have to, rearrange them, shape, try this. Hey, here's the thing with this, folks. Some of this are going to help you and I in test settings. Some of this is going to help you and I. And then expression recall, developing test-taking skills. It takes you through step by step on here. Here's some previously used things, but here's an acronym for this. And then it goes over here. Here's some hints on developing skills for true-false tests. This is you modifying. This is teaching the kid the student how to do it. Here's some strategies for them taking essay questions. Here's some strategies on all tests for them. Okay, and bring 3 or 4 of these in, folks. They're phenomenal stuff. Hang on to this. You'll need this when you start teaching. All right. And this on commercial, it just lays out a couple things here. Advanced skills, school success that you could purchase. First letter mnemonic strategies. Think for that. And here's some test taking strategy program. And I don't know how successful they would be. This one I thought was more interesting on the computer. Academic success, multimedia study skill things. So I just put those in there for you also to look at. All right. That is it. And like I say, you take this in to your imports this week. Instead of clipping each of these, you just take this in and link this. So when I come to your page of correcting, I find this linked in your wiki. Chapter 13.